sister says that you owe her $200. Plus, you used her credit card, according to her, without her knowledge twice, once on November 28th and once on November 30th for $58.99 and $72.99.
This is the plaintiff, Veronica Chandler. She says the defendant is her younger sister, and she loaned her some money so she could buy some new clothes for her birthday. She also used her credit card without her knowledge, and that is stealing. Her sister told her to just call the credit card company to dispute the charges, but that's illegal. Bottom line, her sister owes her $331.98, and that's exactly what she's suing for today. This is the defendant, Denisha Brown. She says the plaintiff lived in her house rent-free. That's why she's not paying her the money she's suing for today. That's right, her sister was supposed to pay her for rent and never did. She didn't try to collect it, and that makes them even. She's accused of dissing her sister.
All parties, please use your right hand.
What you are about to witness is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in civil court. Both parties have agreed to drop their claims and have their cases settled here before Judge Marilyn Milian in our forum, the People's Court.
The People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Milian is now presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, ma'am.
All right, Ms. Chandler, you're here today suing your little sister, Ms. Brown, for $331.98 that you say she owes you. Back in October of 2019, according to your complaint, you were homeless. Why were you homeless?
Because I moved out with my son and I really didn't have anywhere else to go to because I couldn't get an apartment by myself because of my funds.
Okay, so when you needed to turn to somebody, the person you turned to was Ms. Brown, correct? And you moved in with her for how long?
I didn't exactly turn to her. My daughter set us up together and I went to stay with her and she said that I could stay for a little while and it would be rent-free.
That was nice, wasn't it?
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So then on Ms. Brown's birthday, she asks you for what?
She asked me to loan her, because I had like a couple $100 that I loaned her prior to, and then I had it again. She gave it back to me. So she asked me for her dinner for her birthday. She said she needed it because if she didn't have it, she wouldn't be able to pay for dinner for her and her husband and her daughter to go and eat that night. So I loaned it to her, and she said she would pay me back that weekend when she got paid again.
Okay. And you don't dispute that, right, Ms. Brown?
No, I do not dispute that that I borrowed $200 from her.
All right. So now the next thing that happens is you notice that there's credit card activity and you didn't do it. Tell me about that.
Well, prior to that, I ordered something from her for like $40-some, and she said, well, the next day I'll pay you back, which I did that for her, and she paid me back the next day. Then when I look on my bank statement, there's a couple more charges, which I don't even shop at that place, so I know it wasn't me, and I asked her about it, and she said, well, just call the credit card company and tell them that it wasn't you and whatever, and I said, I can't do that, because if I do that, they're going to already know I already bought something from there that I have, and that would be fraud, so they're not going to do it.
Right, but did she admit that she's the one who had charged those things?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Brown, what's going on? Your sister says that you owe her $200, plus you used her credit card, according to her, without her knowledge twice, once on November 28th and once on November 30th for $58.99 and $72.99. What's going on?
Okay, so she moved in with me in September of 2019. She lived with me until November of 2019. She was sleeping in her car, and I felt compelled because no one wanted her to move in. And not even our mother. And so I felt compelled to ask her. I was like, hey, go ahead. You can move in. You can stay here for a month. And if you're here longer than a month, then you're going to have to start paying rent. And she was there longer than a month. The whole time that she was there at the house, My whole house was just a whole ball of negative energy. She was living in my daughter's room the whole time. She's a person that carries a lot of things with her, in a sense, kind of a hoarder in a sense. My two sons who live here with me, they were not happy with her being here. She would harass them. She would be negative towards them. She would be disrespectful to them and be upset if they were
Okay,
being
let me ask you a
disrespectful to
question, though. She's been your sister how long? Like all your life. So you know her. So if you know her and you know, like I love my brother, but I don't want to live with him and he doesn't want to live with me. So, you know, I understand that you were in a dire situation, Ms. Chandler, and Ms. Brown is the one who took you in. So you have to be on really, really good behavior when you're over there because you're living rent-free. Ms. Chandler, were you supposed to start paying rent after a month?
No, because I didn't even stay there that long because she went on a trip to New York and she told me I had to be out of her house before she left.
Ms. Brown, when you say she was supposed to start paying rent if she stayed longer than a month, you never charged her rent, right? Because I'm looking at the answer, your answer to the complaint says, I don't feel I owe her anything. As for the loan, she lived with me for over a month and we agreed that she would pay me rent, but she never paid me anything. I took her in against my husband's wishes. It turned my house upside down. I was going to pay her back at first, but when I thought about it, since she lived rent-free and never paid me anything, I feel like we're even.
Correct.
Is that more the flavor of this? So,
correct.
Right, but here's the thing. You know, I look at the text between the two of you, and here's a text in January. Yeah, now I want my money, the plaintiff says, $200 cash and then the two amounts from Fashion Nova. Who would have thought you would do me like that? This is theft with the credit card according to the courts. The $200 verbal agreement is valid also through the courts. We can do it that way by the end of this month if I don't have it. And this is dated January 19, so it's substantially after she moves out. B, had I had my money you owe me, I could have been there. You should feel bad, but people like you never do until you get what's coming to you. And then your sister, the defendant, responds, listen, B, I'm going to give you your damn money when I am able to. Until then, go have several seats in the... I've never even heard this phrase, and both of you are using it. Is that like a thing, and I've just missed it all my life? So in January, you're telling her, yeah, you'll get the money when I can. So I know that it's not that she actually owed you rent. I think it's that you changed your mind about paying her back because you're mad at her. What is it you're really mad at? Because it seems to me that the thing to be really mad at is not that someone is asking you to pay back money that you clearly borrowed because you're admitting it in January. The thing that you're mad at is that you feel like you were there for her when she was living out of a car and that she's hassling you and over the money, and you're not feeling the gratitude. I think that's what you're mad at. Am I right?
Yes, that is correct.
Welcome back to the People's Court. I'm Harvey Levin. The plaintiff says her sister stole her credit card and used it without permission. But the defendant says her sister has been living in her house rent-free. She has done nothing wrong here and will prove it. Let's listen.
Because she turned the house upside down, Judge. My husband was upset. My kids were upset, and
what were they upset about? Was it her attitude, or were they upset that there's just another person among them?
No, it was her attitude. She's toxic, and I know that. I know that for my sister, but I still insisted on. I still felt bad because she was sleeping in her car, and even my mom would say, you know, maybe she's going through this for a reason. Maybe you shouldn't intervene. And I intervened and allowed her to come and stay with us. And my children were not happy the whole time that she was here.
Okay, we already heard that. Let me ask you a question. Where are you living now, Ms. Chandler?
I have my own apartment now.
Okay, well, good luck there. Here's the thing, Ms. Brown. There are two different issues going on here. One is what is right, just kind of morally, spiritually, what would I do? I would never sue the sister who took me out of sleeping in a car and let me live rent-free with her. I would just chalk it up to, you know, whatever. And I would think, you know what, I owe her so much more than she owes me. I would never sue you. That's the spiritual kind of moral feeling I have about it. Another is what the law is. The law is very different, and it has nothing to do with the spiritual. Sometimes it has to do with the moral. But what it has to do with is it a loan or is it a gift? And I know from looking at your text in January that it was absolutely a loan, and that your feeling that you shouldn't have to pay it is based on she owes you so much more. So what I have to look at is, does she really owe you so much more? She may owe you so much more in the heart, in gratitude, but I don't believe there was ever a debt of rent to you. I think the whole time that she was there, she was supposed to be living rent-free. She just didn't leave fast enough. So I am going to find that you are liable to your sister, and I'm going to rule in favor of the plaintiff in the amount of the $331.98. That's my verdict.
So the judge finds for Ms. Chandler, the plaintiff in this case. Ms. Brown, how do you feel about that? What's your opinion?
I think it's a bunch of crock. I mean, I respect the judge. However, she was told if she stayed with me longer than a month, that she was going to have to pay rent.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think this is going to do to your relationship, in the future with your sister? Do you think this is going to really hurt that relationship?
When she left, I washed my hands of her at that moment because she always calls and needed someone to do something for her. And I have children that deserve my responsibility, not a grown woman.
So it's over as far as you're concerned. Let's see how Ms. Chandler feels about it, ma'am. You did win the lawsuit, but how do you feel about it now? Was it worth it?
Yes, it was. Because my sister is not telling the exact truth, and if she would clearly get off those drugs she's on, she'd be a better person.
Do you think if you were in need, you'd go back to her again for help?
No. There's other resources.
All right.
But
well, thank you very much. And that'll bring an end to this sister versus sister dispute. Let's see what the judges think. Here again, another session of After the Verdict.
Every now and then, as a judge, you have to render a judgment in favor of a party who is utterly unworthy of the judgment in their favor. And you kind of hold your nose and you follow the law and you say, yep, there's your $300, whatever it might be. And I got a sense that that was kind of how you felt when you rendered this judgment.
It's kind of sad because, the hallway is an opportunity to kind of maybe start the next step of healing and peace. And when I watched sisters jab like that, and I could tell that she was hurt, right? Couldn't you? Like the plaintiff was hurt that she said, my kids don't like you, basically. And she didn't like hearing that.
And is there any greater gift that one human being can give to another than to take them into your home when they're in their car or outdoors and sleeping from pillar to post, and you say, hey, stay under my roof for a while.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lifelong debt.
You were pretty insulted about that.
Oh,
I could hear you huffing and puffing.
Oh, my God. Are you kidding me? Usually, as a judge, you don't see siblings in court suing each other, except maybe in probate cases where there's an inheritance.
That's what you don't see because you didn't do small claims. And small claims, you see this so often that you just want to cry.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
In the larger cases, I would see only an occasional probate case where they're clashing over property or inheritance and who gets what because it's not explicit in a will. Like that.
Right, but when you see this in a small claims case where you're talking about a smaller sum of money, that's where it's really pathetic.
It really is. It's heartbreaking.
Okay, Keith wants to know this. Hey, Harvey, we've heard about a right to cut a neighbor's limbs from a tree up to the heavens, but what if I cut the roots in my property and kill the tree? Am I responsible? Well, if you cut the roots only to the property line, you don't go beyond your property line, you're allowed to do that. They have a duty to maintain it. And if the roots come over onto yours, you can cut them there. And if it dies, that's their problem. If you go on to their property, it's your problem. And that will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case inside the courtroom.
These are the plaintiffs, Wanda and Daniel Bronstein. Wanda says the defendant towed Daniel's car, and as he was unloading the car from his truck, he dropped it. When the car fell, it damaged the radiator. The defendant refuses to admit his guilt. He refuses to pay for the damages. And they refuse to let him get away with it, so they're suing for $4,064.53. All the money they're out. This is the defendant, Billy Perez. He says the radiator was already leaking when he got the car. Also, there was no way to drop a car because it uses a hydraulic lift. This is typical. Everyone tries to always blame the tow guy for damage they already had, and he's not about to pay for something he didn't do. He's accused of dropping everything.
All parties, please use your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiffs claim the defendant, a tow truck driver, dropped their car off the truck and damaged it really, really bad. But the defendant claims the car was already leaking when he picked it up, and the plaintiffs are just trying to blame him for something he didn't do. It's the case of, I'm dropping everything.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Bronstein and Mrs. Bronstein, what's the relationship between you two?
He's my son.
Yeah.
All right, so Mrs. Bronstein, tell me what happened.
Okay, so around early December, I got a call from my son telling me that he had a flat tire. And so I went with my car thinking that I could replace the tire myself, and I couldn't do it. So I basically brought them back home and I left the car there. And the next day, I called AAA to have it towed to my house. So when I called them to tow...
How did you get the flat, Mr. Bronstein?
I was actually just driving one of my friends to his basketball tryout, and I just heard like a shake on one of the tires, and I had to pull over, and I just got out of my car, and I looked, and it was just flat.
What kind of car is this?
It's a 2006 Toyota Camry.
All right, so it's towed for the flat tire, and what happens?
I got there, and the Reno's Auto Body Towing came over, and they came over with this green wrecker. And so he went ahead and he loaded the car. Then he was going to follow me to my house. So I started on the road, and he was following me. There was no issue. There was nothing going on. Then what he did was after we were on my street, he backed up the car onto my driveway. And then I heard a loud bang, and the car was dropped. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound very good. So when he got out of the truck, he said to me, he kept asking me if he could look under the hood. And I thought, well, that's unusual. I've had a car towed before, and no one asked me. I said, no, you don't have to look under the hood. It's okay. And he said, no. Can I please just...
Wait, why would you say it's okay? Why isn't what you say is what the hell just happened? Why isn't that what you say? Hey, what the heck just happened? Because if you heard a loud bang, that would be cause for concern.
Yeah, it dropped. Right, it dropped. But I didn't...
Right, so...
damage.
I would think if I'd heard a loud bang and it dropped and the guy says, can I look under the hood? I'd say, you betcha. We're both going to look under the hood. We need to see what just happened. That's kind of what I would say. So I'm trying to figure out why you're telling him, no, it's okay. You don't have to. That's a weird thing for him to ask and a weirder thing for you to say.
I didn't know how to handle it, to be honest, because I was never asked that question, because I never had somebody drop the car when it was towed. So when he asked me again, I said, okay, yeah, go ahead. So I popped the hood open, and when the hood was open, we both looked inside, and I noticed that there was a dent through. Now, I didn't know this at the time what these parts were, but there was a dent like punched through the condenser and the radiator. I have the condenser and radiator behind me, actually.
Can I see it?
Well, so sure. Let's see. So this is a condenser part. You see how it's punched in? I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can.
You see that?
I can.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
then this is the radiator. Sorry. And this is punched in too. Can you see that? I'm sorry.
That one I cannot. Show me. Put your hand where it's punched. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. You sent me pictures of that as well, correct?
Yeah. And it lines up.
It lines up perfectly with what?
With each other, where the damage was, where it was pushed through here, and it pushed through the back of this too. So if you look at it this way, Judge, and then you look at it sort of like from the side or back, it lines up perfectly. So
okay,
something punched through the license plate, punched through the grill, and punched through this. Now, I'm not saying that that happened, Judge Milian. I'm not saying that that happened when the car was dropped, because after taking the car to the mechanic to get fixed, after the car was fixed, I asked him, can you look at the license plate, and can you tell me if how the tower did this damage? Okay. And he said, oh, it could have easily been the tow truck, because they have these arms that sort of come out. And he explained that if a button is pressed too soon, the arms sort of come down this way, and instead of reaching the floor, they'll go halfway and punch through the car. So that's why.
Okay. Do you have that in writing from a mechanic? Do you have anything in writing that said? Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I didn't. He didn't.
Okay. So what do when you see this? Do you call AAA and say, hey, that whoever you sent me did this or that? What happens?
That's exactly what I did. I called AAA.
When did you call AAA?
Let's see. I called AAA the very next day.
All right. Now, you used the car to deliver pizzas. Is that right, Mr. Bronstein? And
yes.
The car couldn't be driven for a couple weeks before it was fixed. So you were out of a job during that time as well, correct?
Correct.
All right. Let me hear from you, Mr. Perez. You're the tow truck driver, and you have authority to represent by the owner. Tell me what it is that happened.
So backed up into her driveway. She's saying that the car was dropped. It's impossible because there's two straps holding the wheels down to the part she's talking about. For me to get out and drop the car off, I got to take the strap off first and then go back in the truck and hit the levers to bring the car down, it goes very slow. They don't go very fast when it's going down. Pull my truck out. Well, I noticed that it was wet. So I thought maybe one of the lines from the truck or something busted or something. So I thought, can we open the
You noticed
the hood
what
to
was
see?
wet? You noticed what was wet?
Boom. Yeah, the part of the boom would pick up the car. The boom. If you see the boom with the front sharp part in the front of it, if that would have damaged, done all that damage, that would have went right through her bumper, her grill. The whole front end would have been damaged, not only the
Well,
radiator.
maybe not. Maybe you just hit it a little. But here's my question. When you tow a car, you note the car's damage. Where's your tow receipt so I can see how you noted all this damage?
Usually we take pictures.
Okay, so where are the pictures of the damaged? So let me see them. That's a picture. Okay, how did you take that picture? Hold on.
The picture was
Took it on your
taken with
phone?
the tow manager went up there. They took a picture of the car after she
Oh,
made
that's
the claim.
after.
Yeah.
Correct. That's not what I'm asking you. You know what I'm asking you. I'm asking you to tell me, because a tow truck driver marks on the sheet everything that's wrong. So what did you mark? Let me see the sheet.
Welcome back to the People's Court. The plaintiffs claim the radiator is now destroyed because the defendant punctured it. But the defendant says that's impossible, and he can prove it. Let's go back into the courtroom.
Usually if we see like a crazy damages or something like that, then we'll take pictures or we note it. But the license plate, the bumper, everything was fine. The grill was fine. Everything was fine, you know?
Actually, it wasn't. And you asked to look under the hood. Why, you say?
I noticed my forks, that where the pointing thing was, it was wet when I dropped the car off. So I'm thinking maybe it was one of my lines that busted in the truck, or I want to see what's going on. And that's how we noticed the radiator was damaged, you know, it was leaking. And it started leaking when I lifted the car up from the front. When it was sitting flat, it wasn't leaking.
Nothing you're saying is good for your side. I mean, think about what you're saying. So everything was fine until you towed it.
May I say something, Judge?
Yeah.
Initially, I thought, oh my gosh, I heard the bang, and I thought, is that what damaged the car? But then when I got it fixed, that's when the mechanic said, I brought him out and I said, can you look at my license plate? Because then I figured out the license plate is bent. And I thought that has to be the point of penetration, And so
was that license plate bent before the tow?
No.
Yeah, but
So
again,
anyway, so
it's impossible. It's impossible. to do all that
Well,
damage.
it's not
with that
impossible.
car.
It's not impossible. No, it's not. It's not. No, it's not. It's not impossible.
It's a solid piece with a point on the front. I would have went right through, all the way through our engine if I would have done all that damage.
You have to listen to me. This is not a criminal case.
Okay.
This is a civil case. In a civil case, the burden of proof on the part of the plaintiff is by a preponderance of the evidence, which means is it more likely than not. I've got two people who are telling me, listen, it was a flat tire, and you know you were towing for a flat tire, not from some piece of junk that got picked up at a junkyard or whatever. I am used to seeing the sheet that will say, hey, Judge, look, right here, I wrote that there was damage to the license plate. When you say, oh, that little bit of damage I would not note, I don't know that I'm really believing that, because I don't think, you're not invited to speak. I'm talking. Really, that's not a little bit. That's kind of big. But more than that, if not you, then who? There's like a spike, literally a spike, where it lines up with each of the things that we're talking about, and the only thing that happened was the tow. But I got to tell you, you know, there's something that you said in your answer to the complaint. Everyone always blames the tow truck drivers. I don't. The tow truck drivers almost always win because it's almost impossible to prove these cases. But go ahead.
Also, AAA sent one of their persons out there to investigate, because they got to see what's going on before they pay any damages or anything like that. So they send somebody from their company out there to inspect the car and take pictures, and they say they were going to pay the damage. They
said they weren't going to. I read the letter from AAA. They don't pay the damage because you are responsible for the first $2,500. That's why they weren't going to pay the damage. Your company is supposed to pay the first your deductible is $2,500. So based on what she presented to them, they said, well, you know, go to them. Mr. Perez, do you have something from AAA that says our inspectors looked at it and there's no way this could have been the tow truck? Do you have something that says that?
Yeah, that's something I don't know about. That's something they do, you know, and then they'll...
Yeah, that's not what they did. I'm telling you now, I read the letter. All right. Now, you're suing for your son's lost wages, you know, a million different things in the kitchen sink. What I'm going to order is exactly what you had asked for AAA, $2,248.01 verdict for the plaintiffs.
Mr. Perez, the tow truck driver, what do you think, sir? Close call.
Tow truck always, you know, get blamed for stuff, you know. And clearly I couldn't have done that damage. I would have ripped her bumper off, or her front end would have been damaged. It's impossible.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's what the judge has determined, and unfortunately, you're out of luck. All right, Ms. Brownstein, you were seeking, you know, like $4,000, as the judge said. You wanted the kitchen sink and everything else. You didn't get that. She gave you exactly what you asked AAA for. So, you satisfied?
Not really, because you know, there was still the grill that needs to be repaired that hasn't been repaired. You know, as a result of, you know, AAA stalling and dragging this out, and, you know, as a result of Reno's not cooperating, you know, this thing was extended up to 2 months. So my son couldn't deliver pizza because the car wasn't fixed, and I didn't realize that AAA was not going to repair it when Reno's decided that they were not liable or responsible for it.
Well, I'm sorry for you, but that's the judge's decision, and
but I'm glad,
you're going to have to live with it. You get something. Hey, you didn't lose. You won. Okay?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Be happy there.
Yeah, I am.
All right, good enough. Thank you very much.
The plaintiff prevails here and gets the damages that she sought.
Yeah, she also, I think she misunderstood because I also gave her the grill.
You did. You gave her almost everything. She was asking as well for lost wages for her son who was delivering pizza.
You know, I think it was like 8 weeks or whatever it was. Get another job.
Right. But on the lion's share of the claim that she made, she did prevail. And I guess from looking at the evidence and how you ruled, you figured that arm went straight in, struck the license plate, probably pushed it out of the way, went through punched through the bumper, punched into the radiator and the condensing unit for the air conditioner, all in a line, a straight kind of
Yeah, I mean,
line.
I'm not sure how you know, I could tell from the license plate that something sharp had punched it through, and each thing behind it then broke the thing behind it.
Exactly, and I suspect somebody probably straightened the plate a little bit. It might have been the driver, I don't know how, but because it might have been pushed out of the way when it entered. But the marks on it were pretty damning, pretty telling, and I think that, like you say, they lined up.
So Carrie wants to know this. Hey, Harvey, if you buy something on a friend's credit card and they go bankrupt, do you still have to pay them back? Of course you do. I mean, you're not bankrupt, they're bankrupt. And you pay them the money. That money goes into the bankruptcy court, and the bankruptcy court then pays the other creditors what they're due. That will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case on the way into the courtroom, and they are inside, actually, right now.
This is the plaintiff, Barbara Leonard. She says she loaned the defendant $200 in his time of need, and the louse won't pay her back. That's right. He gave her $40, and she can't seem to get him to pay her the remaining $160. The defendant has shown a total disregard for her, and she was kind enough to lend him money in the first place, so she's suing. This is the defendant, Dominic Logano. He says he and the plaintiff's ex-husband were good friends for 19 years. He paid the plaintiff $40, and he also paid the plaintiff's husband $100, but then he unexpectedly died. The callous plaintiff then demanded he pay her $160 while he was trying to grieve the death of his good friend. This woman has no heart and deserves nothing. He's accused of groaning over a loan.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says she loaned the defendant money and she cannot seem to get the guy to pay back. But the defendant says he gave the money to the plaintiff's husband, but he unexpectedly died the next day and he shouldn't have to pay the loan back twice. It's the case of groaning over a loan.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Okay, Ms. Leonard, how is it that you know Mr. Logano?
He was my husband's good friend for a couple of years.
Well, according to him, it was 19 years. Is that accurate?
Well, I wasn't aware of that. That's what he says.
Okay. So let me ask you, how did it come about that you loaned him money?
I was working in the Nathaniel Witherell, which is a local nursing home, and he was there for a week. He asked me for a ride home, so I gave him a ride home, and I came home to get my husband so he can help him carry things. And Donnie had recently asked me if I could lend him $200 for Christmas presents for his family, and I had lent him money once before, and he paid me right back. So when I went home, I gave Lee the $200 to give to him. You know, he told me he'd pay me back in January, which he gave Lee $40 to pay me back, but he said that he gave another $100 to Lee, which is wrong, because I have the proof of him the day before Lee died telling me he's going to pay me the rest of the money in the beginning of March. So that's a lie. He did not give Lee $100.
How did Lee die?
I really don't want to discuss it on the tape, but he knows how Lee died.
Mr. Logano?
Yes, ma'am.
How did Lee die?
Like Barbara said, it's something that we wouldn't want to discuss on tape.
Can I just ask this, was it sudden?
Yes.
All right, so if Ms. Leonard loans you $160, why are you giving her husband $100?
No.
That's not who loaned it to you.
I owed Mrs. Leonard $200. What happened was, the first money I gave her was $40 in cash in an envelope. Lee came to my home, and he said to me, I said, did you give the envelope to Barb? And he says, yeah, I did. He says, she took it, she threw it across the room. I says, what'd you do that for? He says, please, Donnie, you know? I said, well, whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe it was a bad day.
Well, the implication was that she did not want to get paid in dribs and drabs. Does that sound to you like somebody who said, oh, yeah, pay me in dribs and drabs just a few weeks earlier? Either way, it doesn't matter. My question to you is, there's a debt of $200. She acknowledges you paid her $40, and she's suing for the remaining $160. You claim to have given him $100, And there's no proof
Yes.
of that.
I
Right.
know that. But I
And
gave
he's
to him.
not the guy. And
I gave-
he's not the guy who. He is not the guy who loaned you the money. She is. So you give the. If you did give the 100, you gave it to the wrong person anyway. Even by your own admission, you would still be owing $60, and you still haven't paid it. So what is the reason that you don't?
The reason why I haven't paid it is because she wouldn't come to my
That's
home.
why you wouldn't
She
pay her?
came to my home maybe once or twice in all them years that I was friends with Lee. I mean, it was just a thing. I don't know. Maybe she didn't like me. I don't know. I can't give you an answer. Yes, I do owe her $60. Yes, I did give Lee two $50 bills to give to her. He passed away. 2 days later, she calls me up and says,
One day.
"What did you give Lee anything?" Because I said, "Why?"
Yeah,
She
that's
says,
a lie.
"Because
You
he's
got proof
dead."
on the phone.
I said, "He's dead."
Welcome back to the People's Court. The plaintiff says that the defendant has shown total disregard for her. He's not paying him money back. But the defendant says he's trying to grieve the unexpected death of his great friend. Let's go back to the courtroom.
How did you find out that Lee had died?
At 2:00 in the morning, she called
He
me
didn't die till
and
6.
said, did Lee come by your house? I said, he was here the other day. She says, "Did you give him anything?" And I said, "I didn't give him anything." I said, "Why?" She says, "Because he's dead." That's exactly the way she said it. And then she texted me and said that after it was all said and done, she says, "It cost me $35,000 to bury your friend." I mean, come on. You know, she's going to tell me how much it costs to bury my friend?
I understand that you're frustrated that, you know, she brought up you paying her back eventually very soon after he had passed away. And I understand that maybe the two of you didn't have like the greatest relationship. But at the end of the day, what I have in front of me is a debt that needs to be paid back to her. Did Lee ever give you $100 and say that he had given him $100 to give to you, Ms. Leonard?
No, never, ma'am. And Lee made $4,100 a month, and there's no way he would take $100 from Donnie and not tell me about it. That's absolutely wrong. And I've been to their house more than twice. I brought them to Florida with me to my condo. I was very nice to them. I never hated any of them. But Donnie is not telling the truth. He told me he was going to pay.
Okay, we're done. We're done. We're done. We're
Okay.
done. We're done. Okay? I am ruling in favor of the plaintiff in the amount of the $160. Good luck, folks.
Hey, ma'am.
Let's find out what Mr. Logano, the defendant, feels about this, sir. How do you feel? You owe her $160. The judge says you got to pay it.
It's only $100. It's only $160. It's not the point of the $160. It's the point of the way she went about it, and the way she said it. And I really don't want to get into it no more. It's over with. I'm glad it's over with. My friend is gone. You know, it took me a while to even come to terms with that, and I do miss him very much. And for $160, that's fine. I mean, if she's happy, she's happy.
Okay, Mr. Logano. Well, listen, thank you very much. You do owe her the money, and you know it, and you're going to have to do it now. All right, Ms. Leonard, how you feeling?
Yes.
You okay? You're going to get that money, finally.
It wasn't the point of the money. It's the fact that he said he didn't have to pay me back and I had enough money. That's why I did it, not for the money. I will donate the $160 to charity.
Well, good. Well, congratulations. Sorry it turned out this way. Let's see what
So
the
am
judges think. Time now for another session of After the Verdict.
Somewhere there's a spectrum between kind of scoundrel maybe and hero. And on one end of the spectrum is person who lends you $200 to save Christmas so that people get presents. And at the other end is probably person who stiffs the person who saved Christmas by giving you the $200, right?
Right,
I mean,
right.
Let's face it. Really, she waited, I was trying to do some quick back of the envelope math here, 270 days to get back the $160. It comes out to something like 80 cents a day or something. It's not a lot.
You know, and the defendant keeps saying, "Oh, it's just $160." Okay,
That's
it's
a
just
long
it's
time
just
to wait.
$160 for you too, right? You know.
Well,
So I think that she's probably nailed it, that he just felt like she didn't deserve it. There's something else going on. There's
perhaps.
a little,
Maybe more to the story
especially when he said, she called me in the middle of the night and said, did you give him anything? That had me very concerned. I think she might, I don't think she trusts the relationship between the defendant and her deceased husband.
Okay, guys, that's going to do it for this session of the People's Court. And guess what? We will see you next time.